Yeah. So, Brother Pigeon, you may comments. Thank you. But just note that from time
And
to time I will step in. Yeah. Thank you. Please,
and
please,
Prof,
please,
remember
please.
you were supposed to follow up on Brother Pigeon's question to you. You said you would pick it back up today. Good evening, everyone. I yield.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you. As soon as Brother Pigeon asks, I will do so. Thank you.
yeah, good evening, comrade. Hope you can hear me clearly. So once again, welcome to our study. We've been doing quite a lot and we've been learning a lot in the process. So, Dr. Kwame, please welcome members of the session, then we can go to the reading.
Yeah. Thank you. I'd like to welcome Brother Sam. Brother Sam, your mic is not yet on, but yeah, your camera is on. So welcome, Brother Sam. Welcome, Brother. Welcome, Brother Coco. Welcome, Sister Ida. Welcome, Brother Anu. Welcome, Sister Portia, and welcome, Brother Pigeon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Kwame. Comrades, feel most welcome. As usual, we'll go straight to our reading and we can have a conversation once you're done with our reading. So we'll be reading this paragraph highlighted here. I've been trying to remove the highlight of the previous paragraph. But the paragraph starts with the word indeed when I spoke. That's what we'll be looking at today. I decided to look at that paragraph so that, because I realized the second paragraph and the third paragraph are one. So I wanted to try this as a separate paragraph because there's something separate coming in here. But it's a connection of what we've been discussing all along. And the next class will discuss the two paragraphs that are linked as well. But this paragraph is still a continuation. As usual, we don't end our sessions, we just pause it so that we pick it up. Because these are reading, there's a continuation of thought process. So it's not like you end that, you go to the next topic. No, you're continuing with this conversation. So sometimes you might find that you may be discussing almost same thing over a period of time, but each paragraph presents a different angle and different things that we have to look at. And therefore, we welcome you all and we appreciate those who've been taking their time to be with us. We appreciate Brother Anu for that great and rich information. I think I shared something on the broadcast list that's related to what Brother Anu is also speaking about. And I have a lot of such that's coming up from another source that I've got now on such of those ancient talks and the histories of it. And if I spend time, I'll be able also to share some of them in our broadcast list so that we can learn together. So welcome all, and let's know who is ready to read for us. Anybody is willing to read for us, please let me know. Any brother, any sister, anybody? The paragraph starting with the word indeed and end with the word autocratic. That's the paragraph for our discussion today. Anybody is willing to read for us this? I know you've read this because I always attach this text when I do the invite. Let me know if anybody's willing.
Brother Pigeon, if no one will read, I will read. As I said, I like reading.
Sister Portia, I was hoping a man would read at some point. We haven't heard from a man reading for quite a while, but thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'm gonna yield to the elder. If Sister Ida, pardon me, if Sister Ida tells me to go there, I'm going there. So, King Brothers.
So just so you all know, when we started, we all read in turns, and yeah, that's what we did. So, Brother Pigeon, you might want to then begin calling people to read. Of course, they can pass if they don't want to, so that one person only is not reading all the time and others want to listen.
Okay.
Thank you.
I can read if you want.
Okay, Brother Anu, please go ahead. So probably I'll ensure that each person read a sentence in a paragraph. So if you have 10 sentences, those will be 10 people reading their own sentence. But we'll try to do that so that we engage other people to come up and start maybe reading this. But I know you've read this text anyway. So Brother Anu, it will be a pleasure if you can go ahead and read for us, please. Thank you.
Brother Anu, thank you.
You're most welcome. So do I start from indeed when I spoke?
Yeah, you start from indeed and you talk with the word autocratic.
Okay. Democratic. Okay. Indeed, when I spoke at the law conference at Accra, January 1962, I emphasized that law with its executive arms must be inspired at every level by the ideals of its society. Nevertheless, a society has a choice of instruments. By this, I do not merely mean that different societies could have different instruments. I mean that a society can be, for example, I mean that a society can, for example, decide that all its instruments of coercion and unity shall be centralized. The logical extreme of this is where every permissive right is explicitly backed by an enactment, and where every social disapprobation is made explicit in a prohibitive enactment. This logical extreme of centralization is needlessly to say impossible of attainment. But any society can attempt to approximate it as much as it desires. A society, however, which approximates too closely to this extreme will engender such an unwittingly bureaucracy that the intention of bureaucracy will be annulled. Of course, ideally, the intention of bureaucracy is to achieve impartiality and eschew the arbitrary, but when a society develops an unwielding bureaucracy, it has allowed this fear of the arbitrary to become pathological and it itself autocratic.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Brother Anu. And I hope the reading was clear to our members. And I believe we have some time at least also to interact with this paragraph either before this meeting or by this time now that we are reading it once again. I'll start by asking if there is any words or terms that may need, first of all, definition or explanation before we go ahead. Anybody? Was any word or any term?
I've got it.
Disapprobation.
Yes,
Good
I was
evening.
looking for that word. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Mr. Windhoek. Anybody who might be in a position to explain that word, disapprobation? Anybody?
Are there any other words so that we can take them all together?
Okay. Is there any other further word? Any other extra word that needs maybe explanation or definition?
Maybe unwieldy.
Okay. If there's no any other word, we'll go to the definition of that. Any other last word? Okay. Back to you, Chair, Brother Kwame.
Yeah, yes. So please, I'm not the only one who should explain words. Feel free to also explain words. Brother Anu is the head of an institute, so I'm sure he's more than qualified to explain terminology. So I'm just saying that let's all feel free to contribute to the meaning of terminology, and it's not just my job as such. Yeah. However, I'm happy to contribute. So, Brother Anu, I'm happy to pause if you want to explain the terms. Thank you.
Okay, brother. I'm going to go back and I'll read the term. Okay, I read the sentence. The logical extreme of this is where every permissive right is explicitly backed by an enactment, and where every social disappropriation is made explicit in a prohibitive enactment. Okay. Now, my understanding is that when you look at disappropriation, it is a reaction. Okay. And within the reaction, it is something that is reduced. And it can, when it's reduced, it can result in different products as well. But it's something that is reduced. And so what the brother is saying is that we must watch what we do and what we say, because it can be it's like disappropriate something. You're going to react to it, but it's also going to reduce it. It's going to reduce the effect of it as well. That's my understanding.
Yeah, okay. Let me add to what Brother Anu has said. So let's say Brother Pigeon comes from Kenya. Yeah, we know he does, but for argument's sake, Brother Pigeon comes from Kenya. Brother Pigeon has a very good friend, and let's say the friend is called I don't know, Kwame, for argument's sake. And then, but Kwame, whilst on whilst on a protest, burns the Kenyan flag, and then those around him, including Brother Pigeon, frown on the action because they don't think that it's right to burn the Kenyan flag. And so they ask Brother Kwame why he burned the Kenyan flag. And Brother Kwame says he burnt it because he wanted to make a political statement that the government of Kenya is not a government that he likes very much. So that's an example of social disapprobation. There is no law. I'm assuming, for example, if there is no law that says you can't burn the Kenyan flag. There's no such law. Yeah, maybe there is in Kenya, but I'm assuming there isn't. Now, if such a law doesn't exist, however, even if it doesn't exist, people can show their social disapprobation, which basically means they frown, for example, upon an action, even though that action is not unlawful. So that helps. So that is an example or the meaning of social disapprobation, that we can frown on an action, including something that somebody says, even though there's no law that says that what the person is doing is wrong. So that is social disapprobation. Now, what the paragraph is saying is that if we are going to list all social disapprobations in the law, then the law will be unwieldy, meaning that you cannot operate the law, because there will be so many things in the law that when it comes to judges have to go through hundreds and hundreds of social disapprobations, and then just imagine when you make the burning of the flag the law, then you have to have subtext to say that, did Kwame burn the whole flag? Did he burn a quarter of the flag? Did he burn just the middle of the flag? How did he hold the flag when he burnt it? And then it just becomes unwieldy, because then you have to put every conceivable context within the law. And so unwieldy means you just can't operate it anymore. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Kwame. Now, comrades, I think it's been very clear, and the tone has been set already. So we are actually going to reflect a lot of the, as you can read from the text, a lot of the societies or the society structures, we are going to look at so many things like the law and societal ideals, the choice of instruments, the centralization of power, and even its limits, and even the consequences of that centralization, the bureaucracy, the purpose, the failure. And we are going to look at, even as we go along, issues like how can the law and the enforcement mechanism effectively embody the ideals of a society? And what are the advantages and disadvantages of decentralization? What is actually, why is absolute centralization might be described as unattainable? Even as you share your thoughts on the same, maybe try to help us on those thoughts as well. And how close can a society get to extreme centralization without creating unwieldy bureaucracy? And probably what are the possible consequences of overlying complex bureaucracy? And how can society balance need for impartiality in bureaucracy with the risk of inefficiency? Those are just a few things that we would like to discuss today. And I believe out of all those, at least all of us can be able to share something. So we are almost 36 minutes past our usual time. So I'll go as usual, give members time. You can take as time as you want, but I'll ensure I go through the whole list. And then now we can come back in case you have any questions or explanation as we move along like that. So then Brother Kwame will always come in case of there's any explanation, clarification. You are also allowed to ask any explanation or clarification as you share your thoughts as well. We are not limiting you to that as well. Brother Kwame?
Yeah, can I just make a quick point? I noticed that you read out some guidelines in terms of what you think we should be discussing. That's fine. But then someone would interpret to mean that you're trying to steer our conversation in a particular direction. So considering that, I'm not saying it's wrong, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying so. I'm just saying that someone can interpret it as you trying to steer our conversation in a particular direction. So when we read the texts, I think ideally, let's let people decide what direction they want to take their discussion, rather than we as those chairing telling them how we would like the conversation to go. When you read a text like we've just read, like what Andrew has just read for us, different people see different things. And I think it will be good for us to hear their authentic voices as to what they think they have heard or read or seen, and therefore want to share that thinking with us. I think it is important that we hear people's authentic thinking on a paragraph rather than we reading out what some will construe, although that is not your intention, as we directing their thinking. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And that will be noted. Moving forward, I will only attack the text. So in your invite to the class, you'll only get an invite link.
No, I'm not saying that.
No.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, Brother Pigeon. When you share the like you've done, that's fine. You continue with that. I'm just suggesting that when we meet here, like when we read the text, then let people kind of share what they think authentically, rather than we telling them. And that's what I'm saying. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for that guidance, Brother Kwame. Now, let's open up the conversation. Sister Tapua, your hand is up. I see you take it down. But I'd like to start with you. Yeah, please, go ahead.
I was just reacting to your reaction, your interpretation of what Brother Kwame was saying, because we are mature enough to realize that the questions that you're posing are just questions from your perspective of the text. Several times you've put the questions to us, but often the discussion takes its own life and goes its own direction. So I think it's okay. It just jogs our memories. And sometimes we look at questions and protest and say, no, I mean, I agree or I disagree. That's fine. I think we should just keep the questions there. But like Brother Kwame is suggesting, just know that they're just things to open our minds, but not to force us to think in a particular direction. Thank you.
And it's not often, it's every time that the discussion takes their own route without being guided by your thought processes. And like Sister Tapua has said, your comments, your questions, your inputs does a lot in opening our thinking and our approach towards those texts. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks so much. Okay, let's go. I really take your input as well positively. Just that I thought that when I put the text, it might also be guiding your thoughts at the process of your invitation. But if it doesn't affect your thought process at even the invitation level, then I'll retain it at that space and we move on as we have been guided. So I think that guidance is very clear.
Yes, but Pigeon, remember, when you send the invite, it goes to a lot of people, not just us, yeah? It goes worldwide. So it's useful that it's there. So don't stop that. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Sister Ida?
And those other ones don't attend anyway.
You never know. They might attend when we're not present via YouTube. But anyhow, brother Pigeon, I accept everything that has been said so far, and I'd like to put my hand up to start with what I think of this paragraph. I put my hand up because I feel I am conflicted with this paragraph, and I don't think that at this present moment in time, it just applies to Africans. I think that it applies particularly at the moment in time to what's going on in America. And anybody can stop me. I may be wrong, but to me, especially the end where it says, of course, ideally, the intention of bureaucracy is to achieve impartiality and eschew the arbitrary. But when society develops an unwieldy bureaucracy, it has allowed this fear of the arbitrary. Oh, maybe I should maybe have started further up. But it reminds me of what is currently going on in America. And I tend not to listen to news. But somehow it keeps coming up about Trump being almost deciding what is going to be law, and imposing his extreme ideas on law and order, and it's not then something that is democratically what was that word? It's not something that is democratically taking place by the people who would normally be instruments of the law, and it sort of every society's disapprobation, let me use that word, is not necessarily listened to, even though people are complaining about it. And now I feel I'm going to twist myself into not expressing what I'm trying to say, which is that society, if you have somebody who can cut through law and order whenever they feel like it, it then becomes a problem, because who can stop them if they are at the top and making those laws? So I think that these two paragraphs that we have read are interesting highlights of what is going on at the moment. And there I'm going to stop. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, though.
Brother Pigeon, with your permission, I would like to support Sister Ida's thinking with this example, as she's rightly pointed out, that what's happening in America is that the Trump administration's approach to governance does indeed provide a striking example of laws and policies driven by social disapprobation. That's very correct. If you look out, for instance, and let me be brief, Sister Ida, please feel free to come back if you feel my sharing supports or doesn't support your thinking. So if you look at the EDI, what they call DEI, we call DEI. I think it's called the same across the Atlantic. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. You'll find that the social disapprobation, which is a conservative backlash against DEI initiatives, even though these were some enshrined in law, and you have executive orders from the Trump administration, like for example, Trump's 2025 administration revoked Executive Order 11246, for example, which with respect to EDI, and this is an executive order, and as Mr. Ida is saying, it didn't go through the Congress, as it were. It's just an executive order. And why? Because of social disapprobation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Ida.
Yes, and I think the more I think about it, the more I realize that it's also happening in an extreme form in Israel against the Palestinians. And so I think that there is there seems to be a ceiling where people can't raise their voices high enough to stop some of the things that go on, whether it's America, whether it's Israel, and I'm sure there are other places that maybe even the Congo. Let's go to Africa. Maybe even the Congo, Sudan, all the places where there's so much war, but nobody's doing anything to stop it. And America may not fully be at war with other countries, but it is at war within certain groups within the country. So I think that I realize that I'm treading on a lot of toes, and it's just something that has come up in my head by reading this. So I will leave it for others to make comments as to what has struck them with the reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Ida. Brother Coco?
Oh, is it my turn already?
Yeah, it's your turn already. You don't have to, anytime it's your time, but you can pass if it's not ready on your side.
I was quick, but allow me to read the following before I get into the text itself. So there are terms in there which are very, very important. One of those is bureaucracy. So with bureaucracy, trying to explain it in simple terms, is a system of administration of governing a large organization, institution, fixed rules and impersonality. Often in common usage, it refers to excessive procedure and red tape that can slow down administration. Ideally, bureaucracy aims for impartiality and consistency through standardized procedures and specialized officials. Then another term that I want to delve into is eschew the arbitrary. By eschewing the arbitrary, it means to deliberately avoid or keep away from that which is arbitrary. And here by arbitrary, we mean based on random choice or personal whim, rather than on any reason or system, unpredictable or inconsistent. So that means to actively strive for decisions and actions that are reasoned, consistent, and fair, rather than being subject to individual biases or chance. Then allow me to get into another one which Welcome had asked, unwieldy bureaucracy. So you understand what bureaucracy is now, Welcome. So unwieldy means is a bureaucratic system that is difficult to manage, control, or operate effectively. Usually because it has become so large or so complicated, badly organized, or has too many layers of administration. System that is cumbersome, inefficient, slow decision making, and a lack of responsiveness. Two terms that I want to explain are pathological and autocratic. With pathological, we are talking about, in a general sense, it's extreme in a way that it's not normal, all right? So for instance, it indicates an illness or a mental health problem. When applied in the concept of behavior in which is being applied there, it's like a pathological fear, as that the condition or characteristic has become unhealthy, excessive, or compulsive to a degree that is detrimental. In autocratic, we are talking about something which relates to a characteristic of an autocrat, a ruler who has absolute power. Or if we talk about an autocracy, it's a system of government by one person with absolute power. We all know that also classes can also be autocratic. So having defined those terms, allow me to quickly talk about what Pa Nkume is saying here. He is trying to discuss the relationship between law, societal ideals, and the structure of governance, particularly with a focus on the concept of centralization. In short, he is arguing for a balanced approach to governance. While law reflects social ideals and societies have a right to choose their instruments, an overzealous pursuit of total control through extreme centralization will not only be impractical, but it will also be self-defeating. It will lead to an inefficient and oppressive bureaucratic system that, in its attempt to eliminate arbitrariness, becomes autocratic itself, thereby betraying the very ideals it was meant to serve. We can hear that he's trying to advocate for a recognition of the limits of legal codification and the dangers of an all-encompassing state apparatus. He aligns with, I mean, what he's saying here in this paragraph is more or less what he's saying across the whole book, in which he's saying, let's look at a method that takes the synthesis of the traditional African values we know we have in Africa and the Christian thought to force a path to a post-colonial Africa, which avoids, the usual Soviet-style communist approach where it's all socialist, nothing else, or the Western style where it's liberal individualism before the people, before the community. So in the short way I would like to contribute tonight, but I would like to remind people again that we as Africans, we had our own customary law. And that customary law, it evolved from the people. It evolved that the people had. It evolved from our own ideals as Africans. And that was the law which he used. And the law which he is referring to here is that law which wells from the people. Whereas with the law which we had that has been codified for us, it came from Westminster, it came from Europe, it is a Roman Dutch law. Again, they try by all means to say what stuff are banned and which stuff are not banned. stuff are allowable. But in the customary law, we know the stuff that we can do, and we know the stuff that we cannot do. There is that aspect of morality which varies from one country to the other. Allow me to stop here so the others can continue. Thank you for the opportunity, comrades.
Thank you. Thank you. It was not too soon. You had a lot to say. So I am not guilty of finding you too soon. Yes, let's go to Sister Tapua. Sister Tapua. And I've noticed Brother Sam is struggling to join us, so I hope he'll be able to join us. Sister Tapua, please go ahead.
I think it's too soon for me. But
Go ahead. If it is too soon, also just go ahead. You can come back for the next phase. So just go ahead for your first phase.
Yes, I'll go ahead. I think what Kwame Nkrumah is talking about here is what I am living through in Zimbabwe, where the authorities are trying very hard to control what people are doing and can do. But my reading of the situation is that the laws, we've got two parallel systems here. We've got African customary law, and then we've got the Roman Dutch law. And our people have become expert at dodging the Roman Dutch law as much as possible. So it's coming from the experience of having lived through a struggle where you are protesting at any law. Sometimes it didn't even matter whether the law made sense or not. If it was imposed by these imperialists, these colonialists, we're not going to follow it. So now that we have an African government which has not taken adequate steps to try and reconcile the two legal systems, people are up in arms. They don't want to follow the systems. They don't want to pay tax. They don't want to pay for their electricity bills. They don't want to, in other words, the type of society that the capitalist system has tried to impose on our people through the colonialists has resulted in resistance. And now that it's us Africans in charge, what's happening is the governments that we have are struggling to get people behind them in any way. So people are preferring to go to traditional courts, and the traditional customary courts can only go so far in cases, and they hand them over to the Roman Dutch. And there's so much confusion there. Today, for example, just as an example, I wanted to exempt one of my cars from road tax because I'm just working out, I don't need to have the 4 cars licensed or the 3 cars licensed when I'm using 1 or 2. So I need to exempt one. 2 years before, it was easy. You just walk in and say, I'm exempting this car, and that's it. And if you were one of the people who was going to get your car exempted, you're trying to respect the law. But then people were not. People are not taxing their cars. They're not seeking exemption. So what the government has tried to do is you walk in, you have almost 25 things that you must do to exempt your car. From getting a written consent from reputable garage. And you're talking of Africa. You're talking of a place like Zimbabwe where 85% to 90% of people are unemployed and everybody's fixing cars by the roadside. And then you have a few formal registered companies. And then you're saying authentic. Your mechanic must be this, must be that. I mean, it's micromanagement to a painful level. I just walked out. I walked out and I said, what's this about? It's micromanaging people to the point where you can't breathe. With 85%, 90% unemployment in Zimbabwe, people are selling anything and everything in the street. They come into town to try and sell maybe $2 or $1 worth of tomatoes. And the city council police is after them. In fact, 4 or 5 months, they were there with police on horseback, and people would be running away with their wares. They developed a system of setting them up in the street and a string that attaches to the 4 corners. If they just hear a stampede from one direction, they pick them up and go. This is a government that knows that people are not employed, that knows that people have to make a living, that knows that people can't even get the space to breathe or protest because they're hungry. And we continue to pile laws to say we're collecting $1. I was surprised today, the streets are full. The police can't cope because the people are in the majority. And now they're making a mockery of these silly laws that they're putting in place. And you ask yourself, what's the point? What's the point? I think as Africans, we need to sit down and think about whether we need these European imposed laws or not. And I'm not saying we need to throw all of them. We just need to put our minds together and think of what we're doing for our population. The laws that we have in Zimbabwe were meant for Rhodesia, for whites who wanted to exclude us. And they continue with those laws that exclude the majority of the people and expect the people to comply. It's a wonder Zimbabweans don't march in the streets anymore because they're afraid of getting shot, but they will subvert and do whatever they want to not follow the laws. It's crazy. It's just, I'm not sure where they want to go. So that's my contribution. When you have systems like that, when you have the laws that micromanage, when you're using laws that were used to exclude people, to make it difficult for people, we're losing the point. We're losing the point of having any laws, because laws should bring people together, should help to respect the society and to respect whatever it is we're building. You fall out of love with the country if you live in a country like this. Thank you. I'll stop there for now.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
Brother Pigeon.
Yeah, please go ahead, Brother Kwame.
Yeah, let me comment on Sister Tapua's sharing. So, Sister Tapua's, sorry, not that I'll make a habit of commenting on everything, but I think Sister Tapua has drawn our attention to something very important, which is found in the introduction of consensusism. So I'll just read it and leave it at that. It reads that the evaluation, this is the introduction, the 3rd paragraph. It reads as follows, quote unquote, the evaluation of one's own social circumstance is part of the analysis of facts and events. And this kind of evaluation is, I feel, as good a starting point of the inquiry into the relations between philosophy and society as any other. Philosophy, in understanding human society, and the example that Sister Tapua has shared with us, calls for an analysis of facts and events, an attempt to see how they fit into human life, and so how they make up human experience. In this way, philosophy, like history, can come to enrich, indeed, to define the experience of man. So I just thought I'd draw our attention to that very important, the way Sister Tapua handled it, the evaluation of one's own social circumstance is part of that analysis that we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Kwame, for that. Pawindok, you want to go ahead? Next.
Hey. Brother PG.
Yes.
I'm scratching my head. I hope you can see.
Yeah, today I'm coming with no warning. I just come find you there. Yes, go ahead.
Kwame Nkrumah say, I emphasize that law with its executive arms must be inspired at every level by the ideals of its society. Was he referring to the law at its promulgation, or was he referring to law in regards to its application?
Welcome. Or
I
any
need
other member
somebody
who
to
might
help.
interpret this.
Yeah, I mean, Nkrumah is making a presentation to the Law Society of Ghana. And as in the Law Society of Ghana, if you go to Ghana's law school, as in other law schools, Satapo has mentioned the Dutch whatever law, and Brother Koko has also in the past drawn our attention to that. In fact, you recall Brother Koko did a session. He and Brother, he invited us to a session on this very issue of customary law and Anglo-Dutch law. And so the Ghana Law Society, Ghana Law School, what do they teach? What law do they teach? I think you'll find they teach the kind of law that you find being taught in other law schools across the continent, which is Anglo-Dutch law, if I may use that terminology, or in our case, or you might just say English law. English law. And although English law comes in various guises, so for example, I'm not an expert on English law, but for instance, there is a difference between what they call statutory law, where the parliament passes a law. There's a difference between that, and there's a difference between that and parliament giving powers to an organization, like for example, the legal body to enact what we call bylaws. And these bylaws are not spelled out by the statute itself, but they are spelled out by the organization to which the law, to which parliament has delegated authority. And these bylaws are as enforceable as if there was a statute law, and so on and so forth. So when Nkrumah is talking to the Law Society of Ghana, he's talking to, if you like, experts on these kinds of laws. And I think in if I'm correct, in most African countries today, or at least in Ghana anyway, when certain matters come up in court, as you will find, I think in most African countries, the formal courts can ask for the matter to be adjudicated outside the formal law through, for example, some kind of cultural contexts, and then the court will ask that the matter then be reported to them as to whether it has been resolved or not, and so on and so forth. So I think what we are reading. So to answer your question, welcome. Question. It's referring to the formal law, that is the law in writing, that is statutory law, passed by the government of Ghana under Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And some of the laws that the state of Ghana inherited also came from the colonial government or the colonial state. So when we got independence, not all the laws were abolished, as you know. Some of the laws of the colonial, I think when Sister Pua made a comment, she said that some of the laws that are on Zimbabwe statutes were used during the time of is it Rhodesia, yeah. But then the modern state, the post-colonial state, has retained some of those laws, and so when Nkrumah is talking to the Law Society of Ghana in their conference, he's making mention of the need to balance the laws. That we can't have a situation where the formal law is telling us how we must live, how you should brush your teeth, how you should sleep in bed, who you should marry, tall, fat, short, thin, whatever, that the law can't be telling us exactly what we should do, and that it has to be balanced with non, if you like, what people feel and what people think, and that is, if you look at the first paragraph, he said that that the law must be inspired at every level by the ideals of its society. Society's ideals must inspire the laws. I hope I don't want to talk too much. I hope I have answered your question. I hope so.
Yes, you did. You have enlightened me.
Thank you.
The fact that you have brought Roman Dutch law in the picture, which has been forced on our legal systems by circumstances. So I can now relate to what.
But Sir Welcome, do you not think that, as Sister Tapua was mentioned earlier, I mean, do our leaders, not our leaders, but should I say, should our new nations just accept all the previous colonial laws? I mean, shouldn't we just abolish them and replace them with new laws that are rooted in our ideals as Africans? So we are Africans, and why must we still have laws on that were inspired by an ideology that came to our continent forcefully? Well, maybe not forcefully in the beginning. They came as traders, didn't they? Claiming to be just here to trade with us. So we accepted them, But anyway, but anyway, what they went on then to occupy our land, they abolished our institutions, for example, ownership of land. They replaced them with their own formal systems. They then, after they replaced them, they then defended them. They are still defending them. But then the problem is that it's being defended by our own people now. We have Africans defending laws that are not rooted in our ideals as Africans. And the question is, I hope when it gets to the turn of the Anu, that he will address this, because I mean, to what extent is it right for us to have laws that do not have their roots in our ideals as Africans? You see, so yeah. So I'm sure in Namibia you have the same problem, that you have inherited laws on the statutes that our post-colonial elites have not deleted, or have not annulled, or have not replaced, which they need to do. Anyway, let me stop there. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Back to Brother Enoch.
Yeah, I fully agree with Brother Kwame there, that all the laws that we are operating on are foreign laws. We inherited them at...
no, Brother, I'm not saying all of them, because obviously we have added new laws to them. But I was referring to the inherited laws, some of which are still on our books. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm referring exactly to those. And they are the majority anyway, apart from those that we have repealed and amended. They are just in a minority. So like the case in Namibia, even the constitution itself, it was given to us when we were given independence.
No, Sawindo.
We were given, Namibia was, yes.
I want to confirm, just for reference on the law you're referring to, Kenya got a new constitution. It must still be having maybe element of the old one, but they did away with the old constitution, even though they carried the independent constitution, even though they carried some element to it, but came up with a new constitution, a full from chapter 1 to last, but of course borrowing something from the old. Has that also happened in Namibia, or is just amendment of the independent constitution?
You see what happened before the new constitution was drafted for the independence, basic principles were already drawn up in 1982 as part of the UN resolution 435. And Namibia could only attain independence have they had to agree to those 1982 principles, which they did. If they didn't agree, Namibia wouldn't have attained independence, because that was one of the conditions. So our independence we were given our independence because it was conditional that you would accept these principles in your constitution. And since then, we are just amending one article after the other, one article after the other. We haven't done a complete revamp or overhaul of the constitution. And as to the other bylaws, we are continuing with them until we see something, oh no, this one is maybe not suitable anymore, so we must repeal and replace. But we are running our country based on what we have inherited from the Boers that we have driven away. There was no need of driving the Boers away because we kept on operating on their systems until today. That's why we cannot even get our land back that they have taken. Because what they made sure in the constitution was private property is private property. It doesn't matter how it is acquired. It is private property and nobody has got a right to touch it. So we are stuck in that situation that our land has now been declared, classified as private property and nobody can touch it. And then again, they went on to say land will be acquired only on the basis of willing seller, willing buyer. So who's willing to sell land? So if no one is willing to sell land, there will be no willing buyer. So the land status quo and land situation will remain the same until such time the constitution is properly amended. And as far as I'm concerned, the first day that I come in office is the same time that I will tear down that whole constitution and start afresh. I do not even know a constitution that does not have a preamble to sketch the background from where we come, and that we are now inspired by that background to craft this new constitution. So to me, that constitution of us is just a piece of paper, and I will tear it out and start a whole new one that is inspired by the ideals of the society. Thank you.
You want to come in? If not, we go to Sister Portia. Sister Portia?
Before you go to Sister Portia as well, I've got one more comment to make. And that's when Kwame Nkrumah said, I mean that a society can, for example, decide its instruments of coercion and unity shall be centralized. I do not get it well there. Do we have two instruments, one for coercion and one for unity. Can somebody just dissect that very same sentence for me so that I can understand it better? Thank you. And if there are two sets of instruments, one for coercion and one for unity, what is a classical example of an instrument of coercion and an instrument of unity? Thank you.
Anybody who is willing to help answer what the Tawinda is asking? Anybody?
let me help with a historical example. I think it might be what was in the mind of Nkrumah when he said this. I stand to be corrected by by students of history. So I think what he may be referring to, remember, he said it's just an example. He's not saying that is how it should be. He's saying it's an example. So, so I mean that society can, for example, decide that all the instruments of coercion. I think that one is clear, that basically the police must come under central authority. Yeah, I think that's one thing. The armed forces so these are the instruments of coercion in the modern state. I'm not saying we agree with them. I'm just saying that those are the instruments of coercion. So the police, let's use the police and the armed forces. So those, for example, society can decide that the police and the army should come under a central authority, say the central government. Then society might decide that it doesn't want a central police force. It wants a decentralized police force. So in the UK, in England, there is no central police force. They have police forces for every region has its own police force. So in London, they have the Metropolitan Police. If you go to Somerset, they have the Somerset Police. If you go to wherever, they have that police. And they deliberately created it like that because they didn't want a central police that was too powerful to control, as it were. So that is how they did it. So what Nkrumah is saying, that's an example. You may choose, like England, to have a decentralized police force. Then you may choose to have a centralized police force. Then the other one, and unity. So when you have in the previous paragraph, you recall that we saw that the whole point of coercion is to unify people, in some cases millions of individuals. So that is the whole point of coercion. Coercion is to unify society. The point of coercion is not to divide society, it's to unify society. And so when someone moves out of turn, or we were using averages the last time. So in averages, you have something called, in statistics, you have something called outliers. Outliers are examples that are far out of the range of conduct. When you have that, you would say, well, that behavior is not the norm. It's not part of the average. It's not part of the range of conduct. It can undermine society. So the Kenyan elite might decide that young people celebrating a Gen Z revolution is not a good idea. So the police should go after them. They may not have given the order to kill the young people, but the police decide to shoot young people. Well, then if the order wasn't for them to shoot the young people, then they should prosecute the police. But then they don't. And if they don't prosecute the police, then people are, well, if you didn't order them to kill, why don't you prosecute them? Because this institution has a long history of just killing people, abducting people, extra judicial killings, and so on. So then people begin to have doubts. So then what happens is that instrument of coercion, which is the law on protests, and it's a constitutional right of the people to protest, is in the Constitution of Kenya. So they are protected by law. Yeah, it's part of the formal law. So then why are they being shot when they are just exercising their right? So then what it means is that, sorry, should I stop, Brother Pigeon?
Just go ahead, Brother Kwame. But I'll just notify the hands that are up that we'll move to other people sharing their thinking first before we come to the conference.
Yeah. So yeah. I hope I haven't triggered anything. So what then is happening is that the instrument of coercion, the police, are not, as it were, their actions are not leading to unification. They are not uniting the country. They're actually dividing the country. You see, so there's a contradiction there, where the instrument of coercion, which are meant to unify Kenya, is actually dividing Kenya. You see, so then the whole point of the instrument of coercion is defeated. And so in Ghana, as I was saying, what Nkrumah had in mind was that the opposition were very, very violent. When I say violent, I mean violent. For those of you who know the history of the independence of how Ghana got its independence, the opposition formed what we call the National Liberation Movement, and they unleashed violence on Ghana, what was then the Gold Coast. They said they didn't want independence. They came to England here to argue that they didn't want independence. And if independence should come, they wanted a federal Ghana, and so on and so forth. So that violence led to a response by the state. And one of the things that the parliament did was to pass a law that said that you couldn't form a political party based on just one language or one ethnicity or one religion and so on. And that if you formed a political party in Ghana, it had to reflect the nation. So that was a law that was passed specifically in order to avert division, because society was being divided along religious lines, ethnic lines, all kinds of lines. Ghana was on the verge of being of falling apart. So the state came in with these new laws and so on. And one of the instruments of coercion was that you'll be arrested without trial, and you will be put in prison. And it was called the Sister Ida, remind me what the law was called. Is it the law? You basically you were arrested, and
the prevention law, Prevention Act,
the Something Prevention Act, yes. And so the state brought that in as an instrument of coercion, and that just led to disaffection amongst Ghanaians against Nkrumah, that in the CPP, that they were being dictatorial. The foreign press took it up. Let me pause there. I was just trying to explain Brother Welcome's interesting question as to what that meant. So I was just trying to explain that. I hope that has been helpful, Brother Welcome. Thank you.
Yes, it has helped, but it has triggered something that you subdued yourself. I was almost I almost wanted to take you on this one, that Kenya police is killing the youth in order to unify the society. How would that?
No, I hope I made that clear. I wasn't saying that the killing was. I'm
No,
saying
it's very clear. You made it very
that
clear indeed.
that they were not sorry, but so it's a constitutional right of Kenyans to protest. It's in the constitution, and so when they are exercising that right, they should be allowed to do that. But then the elites don't want that. Then they send people to kill them. But then by denying them the right to protest and by killing them, you are disuniting society instead. So the laws, so the instruments of coercion are actually disuniting society. So I hope that that's clear. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Brother Kwame. I have three or four people have been spoken. I'll go to the next person. But just to make some clarity, the Constitution of Kenya do not require the citizens to have permission from police officers to demonstrate. The Constitution of Kenya removes the police officer being a custodian of a demonstration. The Constitution of Kenya just clearly states that you should only inform, not ask for permission, inform the police officers that you're going to have a protest. And the purpose of information is that they should protect you, not they should give you a right to go ahead or not go ahead. But that has been not even misinterpreted. It is intentionally so that they stop the citizens from protesting. And they've come up with even extra laws, as you're saying, acts, that say that if you are going now to protest as informers also how many people are going to come, inform us where are you going to pass, inform us what are you going to put on, inform us all those nonsense. And the people say then, can you predict a protest? Can you say how many people are going to come? So first levels of now extra requirements they put to ensure that they curtail that right. But yeah, that is the clear indication of that. So let me just go to Sister Portia, then I'll go to Brother Anu, then I'll go to Sister Chisom. Also, Nunaka's Jena. So Sister Portia is your turn, then Brother Anu.
Okay, thank you. Many greetings all. So the first sentence is saying law with its decision power. So law is the deciding power. And that can be through local, national levels. And that law is based on ideology. The second sentence says society has instruments. The third sentence is saying there's another point aside from knowing that different societies may have different instruments. The fourth sentence emphasizes a society can decide where the decision power will lie. And then the fifth sentence, it seems rights equal legislation. So where there's a right, there's a law talking about what that right entails. And then where you have social disapproval, it's because there's some restrictive legislation around it. And I want to go back to a point of interpretation on the 22nd of May, 2025 in this group. And in the fourth sentence there, it was saying my thinking on it was rules and principles linked to a people in a society, and decisions and opinions, those decisions are founded upon morality, which is founded upon at least one ideology. So those rights and legislation, again, they're talking about ideology, my thinking. And then 6 is extremity is impossible. And here, of course, it's talking about centralization, extremity. And then 7, it's interesting, the person who gave this quote was from England, and that was Acton, who, quote, power tends to corrupt, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So that's just interesting that he is a British person at that time saying that. So that's how I take the danger here is the attempt for extreme centralization goes back to what Acton was saying. Quote, power tends to corrupt. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And then 9, bureaucracy, that type of, I had questions here. My thinking was that this was more a question. Bureaucracy, impartiality, question mark. Bureaucracy is true, pardon my mispronunciation. And how I took that is cumbersome bureaucracy, that is somehow linking to some dictatorship. And then 10, I went more of a breakdown in my thinking, which was extremity equals unwieldy bureaucracy. And that cumbersome bureaucracy, that then leads to, it's based on a fear of the unplanned, and hence the dictatorshipness of it when it's extreme. And so that brought me to a couple of points that I like to say, and then I'll wrap up, is I have been talking of recent about intention and methodology. So here, when you look at current systems, which the previous speakers have been speaking to, most of them, the intention is to control, and not in a good way. And the methodology could be those constitutions that are based on colonial laws. I'm always curious about who wrote those laws. I mean, who came into the countries, rather, and said they were now constitutionalist experts to now be consulted to write laws about a country where they didn't even speak the languages. And then I just want to echo what Queen Sister Tapua said about, the cumbersome bureaucracy. And that goes to the 7th sentence again about this whole power corrupting. And I keep wondering, taxes. Like, for example, when I have been in different parts of Africa and speaking and listening with the local people, they say, well, hey, all you have to do, have your land, you build your home, and there's no property taxes. And now of late, I am hearing there are property taxes in the continent. I yield.
Thank you. Thank you, Sister Portia. Brother Anu?
Greetings, everyone again. There are 2 points I would like to talk about. There are many points, but due to time, the statement that Brother Kwame Nkrumah made, coercion and unity should be centralized, is very interesting because to me, it suggests a strong, unified governing body is necessary to maintain order and control, even if it requires use of force or intimidation, as long as it's used in a for good. And we could debate what good is, okay? But for the good of for the good of the majority. To me, this concept implies that centralized authority is definitely the most effective means to ensure compliance and prevent fragmentation or dissent, within the political or social structure. I've seen it in Barbados as well, and I've seen it in the United States as well, how it can be used adversely, but if in the traditional African ideology, the instruments of coercion and unity can be used very effectively if it's centralized. That's my first point. My second point is on the statement, social disproportionation is made explicit in a prohibitive enactment. That statement is very deep as well, because it refers to a situation where a law of regulation that prohibits certain actions or activates explicitity it defines or highlights a social inequities, right? Inequalities, excuse me, or disparities. So basically what it's saying is when social disproportionate, okay, no, here it is. It's really disproportionate, but we said disproportionation, okay? But it's really a disproportionate when it's made explicit in a prohibitive enactment. It means that a law.
Brother Ano, it's
Yes.
disapprobation.
Disprobation. No.
That one.
Oh.
Social disapprobation.
Okay.
It's disapprobation. Yes.
Hold on a minute. Let me go back and read this here. Hold on. Where is it at? Where's it at? Oh, disprobation. Okay.
Yes.
I'm looking at the wrong word then. Okay. Okay, well, still, okay. With that in context as well, you still have to look at the concept of what sister was talking about. What's her name now? Hold on a minute. Sister Tapua. She was exposing the policies or practices or the procedures that appear neutral, but really it has a disproportionate or negative effect on a particular group. And it could be people who are doing cars. If you have cars, if you have a car, but you can't afford to get the car apart, then it means that your car can't be up and going well. It can't run well. You can't go and make your money because you have the funds to get the car parts. But if you have monies, then it means that you can go ahead and get that. So it's related to me. It's a disproportionate when it comes to social inequalities, right? Again, Brother Kwame had also mentioned about ideals of society as well, how they can reflect in the laws, right? So if you're looking at social inequalities or disparities, proportion is not based on justice, or disproportion is not based on justice. When I study African societies, I find that in African societies traditionally is based on social justice, is based on social equality, is based on equality and outcomes of social justice. So basically, what involves is striving is making sure that if you are in government, whether you use coercion or whether you from a centralized point of view, you want to strive for a society where your resources, your opportunities, and the powers are distributed fairly, and where the efforts are made to correct any existing imbalances and addresses systematic barriers to anybody that has a chance to succeed. But those are really the 2 points that I saw there. And that's basically a very short contribution. But again, if we look at the traditional African values and the ideals of society, is more of a communal society where everything is in proportion. If you have someone that has a big family and you go out and you find the food, you come back, then the person with 5 people in the family would get more as opposed to somebody with just 2 people in the family. If you go to a school, you can't say, well, once I graduate, I'm going to be guaranteed of a job. But then you go to a job and it says, oh, no, I'm sorry, but you can't get a job because of X, Y, and Z. There is reasons why you cannot, or you can't even get a job because you don't have a college degree. So in society, you want to make sure that everyone can partake. And so we want about social justice. And I think that's one of the key things that Brother Kwame was talking about as well. We must have a society where central government looks out for all the people and that the laws are based upon the ideals of the country, which is based upon justice and truth and balance. Peace.
Thank you, Brother Anu. Let's go to Ras Pala, and then I'll come to Brother Kwame. Naki?
Give thanks, son of the league. Give thanks to everyone at large. Yeah, in as much as I came half of the meeting, But yeah, I did manage to grasp there and there. My thought basically is that coercion is necessary, and I don't understand how centralization is sort of an impossible attainment. I'm just trying to conceptualize why the great Kwame Nkrumah was writing this, or maybe it was just a thought. I don't think maybe it was something he meant in terms of Pan-Africanism, because Pan-Africanism is centralization of Africans. So if centralization is impossible to attain, then Pan-Africanism is impossible, of which I disagree with that. You need to...
Ross.
Sorry?
He's not saying that.
Oh,
He's not
okay.
saying centralization is impossible.
Oh,
Which
okay.
line are you referring to?
The one that says that this logic, extreme of centralization, is needless to say impossible of attainment. That line.
Yes, he's referring to extreme in terms of social disapprobation, where you make a law for everything. That's what he's referring to. Does that make sense?
Oh,
That you're making a law for everything. How
okay.
people eat, where they should eat, how they should eat, and so on. Yeah, a law for everything. That's what he meant. So he's giving the example of the centralization before that. So if you look at where it says a society, for example, can decide that all its instruments of coercion and unity shall be centralized. So Ghana itself and Osagifo was a centralized state. But what he's referring to in terms of law is where you are making laws and you are stipulating everything in law and saying that that becomes unwieldy. In other words, it becomes impractical. But the courts even can't work properly if every little thing has to come to the courts for the courts to decide. Yeah, so that's it. So he's talking about, he's talking about extreme centralization, not centralization. I hope that helps. Yeah.
Yeah, it's loud and clear. Loud and clear, man. Yeah, even though I still agree with the extreme centralization, but I don't think that's a conversation for now. But I agree now.
Yeah, but Ras, if you look at the next line, he's agreeing with you. He's saying, but any society can attempt to approximate to it as much as it desires. So, yeah,
Okay.
he's saying that is logically, needless to say, impossible for attainment, but you can try and approximate to it as much as you like.
Yeah, I see. Thanks. Yeah, I'm in line with the great Kwame. Yeah, I was starting to have a mental breakdown now. Okay, thank you.
We can't have you have a mental breakdown, please.
Yeah, so anyway, my view is that coercion is necessary, and centralization is necessary. That's why we need power as black men so that we can able to build private companies and armies, train the youths so that we can protect our black women and children. Then after we protected Africa, then we can start to talk because women like to talk. Then we can do that. But now we still need to get rid of colonialism just the Traore way. Thank you.
Thank you. We got Sister Chisomo. Sister Chisomo has some legal background, I believe so. And therefore, some of these legal things to speak on that. Sister Chisomo.
Oh dear. No, I've come in late, but I'm just picking up on what people are saying, and a few people, including Portia, Sister Portia, kind of repeated what the paragraph is saying. So I picked up on something that says the legal system is based on ideology, something like that. And then I was thinking, if that's the case, then
whose ideology, obviously, them up there. And then all the way down from them, the ideology is different. That's when we clash. That's when you get the Kenyan situation and my country's situation. In my country, the law does not work. Nobody even knows what the law is. I don't even know what the laws are. Everybody makes things up as they go. So because of corruption, it's so hard. You have to be very, very alert as to what somebody is telling you or what they're asking you to do. So I don't know how that then works in society. It certainly doesn't work in mine, and it's causing a lot of problems. So when you come from a country like this one, the United Kingdom, apart from Scotland seems to operate the Malawi way, where everybody just ignores it and don't know what how the system works or what the law says about things. But you come from places like London, where I used to be and I've spent most of my UK life in, you get used to using the law over, and I can say everything. Everything you use it to your best advantage. And then when you walk into Malawi, then it's nobody observes the law, nobody observes anything. But in your mind, you're thinking this should have gone this way and this way and this way. So it takes a lot of convincing. Otherwise, you just pull out of the deal. So, and then I had the issue about land. Can't remember exactly what was said. There was something about willing buyer, willing seller, and that. So then it triggered me, and I said to myself, you see this land thing, and when we say give it back, give it back, give it back, and I remember in the previous sessions when Sister Tapuas reminded us or educated us that they came and they said, whose land is this? And when people couldn't answer to them, it was, oh, it's nobody's land. So they just took. And then I was thinking, in the old days, you didn't buy the land. I don't know. You didn't buy the land. It was allocated free. And you farmed and you built and like Sister Portia was saying, oh, they say you should just build your house, have your land, build your house, and it's tax-free, which is true. And you're off the grid. And so I was thinking, if land was not sold and it didn't seem to belong to anybody, and it was like a communal thing anybody could use or chiefs. We had chiefs, proper chiefs, a proper chieftain system that allocated these lands, and there was some kind of order. And then we then bring in this Western system, the legal system, like people were asking who actually brought in these laws, who actually drafted them. From the documents I've looked before, all these constitutions and all these acts, it looks like they were, as you got independent, you just took what the country before had and pasted in your own country, and it went on and went on and went on. So they were kind of similar and just copying stuff they don't understand. So now these people who took the land were using those laws. They knew that when you have land, you have to register it, you have to put your name on it, protect it so that nobody can come. I think that was the statement, that when it's private law, there's nothing you can do about it. So they had a system that said, you have to register it, you have to put your name on it, in case tomorrow somebody comes and said, look, you need to get off here and you can defend yourself, which is the case these days. When you buy your land, make sure you've registered it, you've whatever. A lot of people in my country, like I said, they don't know the laws, they don't register, and then somebody will come. Tomorrow they come, the land has been taken, the chief has reallocated it, the chief has sold it 5 times. So all these things, then they clash. Then the system doesn't seem to work. I don't know where you then place democracy in all these things. And it's just a mess. So that's when the white man then says, no, you can't take the land from me because I got it. They're looking at the system that works for them and that they used it at the time, and that the land, like we heard, that they came and they said, whose land is it? Nobody seems to say it's theirs, and they took it. So how do we then claim these things back? We have not made any attempt to correct anything. We just continued with the way they were doing it. So how do we reverse and then say, oh, by the way, it's wrong, or bring it back, when we're actually using the system to this day? How do we take it back?
Okay, Sister Tapo,
Thank you.
Thank you. We are 5 minutes to the end of our class today. But I need to go to Brother Kwame. But Sister Tapo, do you have anything that may be urgent, please? Sister Tapo?
Yes, I wanted to say the trouble is the land question. We have displaced the white people and taken over the land using the same laws, when we should have actually got rid of the laws and went back, reverted back to how we saw the land, that nobody owns the land. You live on a piece of land for your lifetime and you leave it to someone else. You can have, like what Mozambique does, for example, they don't have titles there. You've got leases for a period of time and you extend your lease. Then we're solving the problem that we have with land. Because what we're doing is we're trying to operate within the laws of the erstwhile, the colonialists, and we're trying to use that law. We shouldn't. We should go the Traore way, take it and start to land in this country. But I wouldn't be disappointed if somebody said no titles tomorrow. Everyone has a right to land. Because how do we operate in a system where the majority of the people in any country are alienated, like Zimbabwe, for example, where the reserves are still there that were set up by Ian Smith and people still live in there. They don't even realize that they could be moved out of that land at any time, which has happened, and they're not replaced anywhere. So this title thing is just something that we have to get rid of.
Okay.
I am there. Sorry, I'm very passionate about this. Thank you.
No, thank you. We cannot a white man cannot claim to be displaced in Africa. That's my basic principle. Displaced from where? Who placed him in the first place where they want to play? Anyway, let's, Brother Kwame, we only have around 3 minutes or 2 minutes to go. So just come in, Brother Kwame.
We need to hear from you. We've heard from me a few times. Let's hear from you. What are your thoughts? What's your thinking?
Time is up.
You've got 3 minutes. That's a long time to tell us your thinking.
No, let me do it in a minute, man.
You got 3 minutes. Don't worry. Now you have 2 minutes.
The bit is that I've learned a lot from what you're saying. And last time in the last paragraph, we're talking about coercion for cohesion. And I've been seeing how you are trying to link the two in many of the thoughts, how coercion leads to cohesion. But I'm also having issues with this bureaucracy. The key intention is why need this bureaucracy? Because why? To me, I see them like barriers. Yeah, I see them like barriers. Why do you block yourself so much?
No, bureaucracy is just a civil service. If you want to look at it in a different way, it's just a civil service. Every country needs a civil service. Well, we can argue about that, but bureaucracy is the civil service. That's basically what it is.
Okay, so extreme bureaucracy is the problem here.
You can't run a country without an administrative organ,
yes.
And that's what the bureaucracy is.
No, but the concern is about the extremeness of that bureaucracy. Because you see, for example, you're going to an hospital, you have a patient, you're told, I don't know, go to which counter, after there, go to which counter, after there, go to which counter. Before you reach the last counter to see the doctor, the patient is dead. So sometimes that's why I question again the intention of that extreme bureaucracy. Because it's systems, and I think that's where the digital system is coming in, and we say it's having issues. So people want things that can go very fast. Even if I want service from a government, I don't need to go for 4 days or 1 week waiting for government service, waiting for this clearance for this side, waiting to go to this side, waiting to go this until now you get me my service. Because even they say justice delayed is not justice served. So when the process of bureaucracy has to exist, we need to be very conscious on how do we make them, not to hinder services or to make it that hard to access services, but rather just facilitate services. And you need to question yourself, are some of them necessary and to what goal? And the last thing I'll say just is that in terms of, yes, we understand these issues to do with also regulations, because I see how they affect a lot of regulations on how we run a country. But centralization, I have an issue with it as well, because I think we need to devolve powers. We don't need to centralize too much power, even if you have a central figure politically, but power needs to be devolved so that it's not in the one hand for extreme exploitation. That's my end. Thank you.
Thank you. On the question of bureaucracy, just remember that it's up to the society. If the bureaucracy is not working, then it should be re-engineered. But you find that the way it is, somebody is benefiting, so that person keeps it that way, and that person has a lot of power in the society. We've come to the end of the session. Can I remind us all that the in terms of Sachizomo's presentation, let's remind ourselves that in terms of African land rights, these across the whole continent, as far as I understand it, stand to be corrected. And that is that although there was no private ownership, we had indigenous land rights and political autonomy. So when they were asking whose land it is this, they were asking the wrong question, because they were asking which individual owned this land. But that is not, that question was out of context in the indigenous African context, you see, because in the indigenous African context, you don't ask who owns this land privately, you ask which community owns this land. So they came from a system in which, as you know, in this country where I am, most of the land is owned by the crown, the armed forces, and some individuals. This entire country is owned by less than 10% of the population in this country own all the land. Yeah. So they came to us with that kind of mentality. So I just thought I would clarify that it's not that the land wasn't owned by someone. That someone could be the stool, the skin, or or a particular chief, or a paramount chief, and so on and so forth. So I thought I would clarify that. The other thing also is to remind you all, they came with that nonsense in West Africa, and in 1897, after that, the indigenous people formed a society called the Aborigines Rights Protection Society. And I think I've said before, it included figures like John Mensah Saba, J.W. Graf Johnson, Jacob Wilson Say, J.P. Brown. Some of these were heavyweight lawyers. They came to England here, to Westminster, and got them to change the law. And as I've said before, the tragedy was that it wasn't extended to the entire continent. You see, so they respected land rights in West Africa, I mean the British, but it was never extended, and that is a tragedy. So you have a situation like in Namibia, where you have been forced to accept land rights that are not inspired by the ideals of the society. Anyway, let me pause there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Tapua. Unfortunately, we've come to an end of this.
Oh, Sister Tapua. Oh, okay, sorry.
Sister Tapua. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
I just wanted to say that the chief, anyone else did not own the land. Nobody owned they held the land for the people because they did not own the land. Because it's impossible to own the land. It's people who own the land, people who live on the land.
They were trustees.
No, we will have a conversation on the land, I believe so.
Yes.
Brother Kwame, let's make it intentional. to at least set aside either one of the Saturday or this land issue. We've done it before somehow, but we are looking at the customary laws by that time. I think the element of the land thing, we need to have a dedicated session. Of course, Sister Tapua and Sister Chisomo, alongside some of us, will be willing at least to be part of the key speakers to that conversation.
Yeah.
But I also, yes.
Yeah. I agree with what Sister Tapua is saying. That is what I meant. I didn't mean that the chief.
Okay.
That's an individual owned the land. I meant the stool. That's why I said the stool. So what's that saying is what I've been saying, but maybe she didn't quite get what I was saying. The stool. When we say a stool, the land, it means that it is you see, in West Africa, when we say the stool, we mean the stool symbolizes the nation. So it's not individual, or is it the nation owns the land? That's what I meant here. So,
okay, thank you. We are coming to an end of this.
We are agreed. Brother Pin, just so you know, the topic is agricultural transformation. Thank you.
Yeah, I've sent out the notification for that already. I've sent an invite to members. I think I sent it yesterday or the day before for our agricultural transformation. And I wanted to recognize that as much as Brother Elder Kwame has come, Elder Glenn has come late, we appreciate your attendance, Elder, even though it's late. They say better late than never. So, Elder Glenroy, please feel most recognized for your presence, Elder. Having said that, I've shared the recordings for our previous classes, our previous recordings. I've shared them privately to all members who are available. So please have some time either to review or even share them across if you can. And as it's been said, let's meet on Saturday for agricultural transformation. And next week, we don't always end our conversation. That's why we have taken time, because we just pause so that we can continue with the thought process. And I believe you are finding it quite interesting and quite informative by if you can be able to sit down. It's rarely do we sit down and just share our thoughts, but when you have a space like this, I have been finding it very useful for myself as well. So thank you very much, everybody, for today, and let's meet again this Saturday or next week Thursday, or those who come for Tuesday classes. Let's try to meet and have this conversation going. Thank you very much. But anything else from your side?
No.
Okay, so bye-bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night, all.
Good night.
Good day, good afternoon.